Hi, I'm Steve Brady from FHI 360 UK, and I'm genuinely thrilled to be here in Glasgow at COP26. Anybody who's been following COP26, even vaguely, will know that one of the biggest and probably most emotive topics is climate financing. I've just come from a session specifically on climate financing in the health sector, where one of the panelists, Dr. Wang, the Director General of the Vietnamese Health Environment Management Agency, made it really clear that the health sector has a significant role to play in both climate mitigation and in climate adaptation. Unfortunately, the reality is that the health sector gets just 1% of climate financing. So what is climate financing? Well, the UN, as you would expect, and rightly so, has a very clear definition of climate financing, covering local, national, transnational funding coming from private and public sources. What it really is the money that it's going to take to address the issues around climate change. So why is climate financing such a hot topic? Well, unfortunately, we see that the impacts of climate change hit those communities that are most vulnerable and have the least resources to cope with it. But this is not a new issue. Back in 2009, developed countries committed to mobilising $100 billion a year by 2020 to mitigate the impacts of climate change on developing countries. These are the developing countries that are genuinely the biggest causes of climate change and have the resources to pay for it. In 2020, they missed that target. It looks like they're going to miss it again in 2021 and probably again in 2022. Of the 23 developed countries who committed to mobilising the $100 billion, only Germany, Norway and Sweden are meeting their commitments. No other countries are paying their fair share. In fact, I think it's fair to say that for Glasgow to be a success, the developed countries need to honour the promises they made back in 2009. So once we've got the climate financing sorted out, how are we going to address the issues and challenges and the impacts of climate change that we already see around us? Because issues around climate change, such as rising temperatures, rising sea levels, increasing infectious diseases, droughts, are impacting us now, we need to both adapt and we need to build resilience. At FHI 360, we have learned that locally led, context-specific, evidence-based solutions can be found to provide sustainable, equitable solutions to problems for both people and planet. So what does investing in building resilience to climate change look like? Well, let me just give you a few examples from FHI 360's own experience before I finish. Investing in technologies that help farmers get better information on climate and weather so they can plant the right crops, get better yields and improve food security. Providing contraceptive choices that enable people to make decisions about when and if they should have children, providing for healthy families and a healthy environment. Supporting sustainable tourism, nature-based tourism, and creating jobs that protect and conserve the environment. Preventing antimicrobial resistance, AMR, infections that can no longer be treated by antibiotics, by improving surveillance and monitoring. These are just some of the things FHI 360 is already doing now to build resilience against climate change. Climate change is a holistic 360-degree challenge and requires a 360-degree solution that's both equitable, sustainable and fair for all the people on the planet.